Okay. Ray interview 1 and action.
What's up, everybody? My name is Lisa, also known as Melody. I'm here with Ray. I wanted to take some time to give some wonderful introduction to this great man here who is going to be sharing some insight on his upcoming album, which you may now have heard a little bit of, titled Ray. So, Ray, how are you feeling today? Are you nervous? How are you feeling with this new drop coming? Like, what's going on through your head these days?
Not as nervous as the first time, you know. I'm actually excited for the next drop just because I feel like with the first one that we ended up getting, it was the first time around. It was the first experience that you ever had, and you want people to like what you're dropping so much that you're just like, oh shit, what kind of opinions are going to be coming my way, you know? So this time around, I feel a lot more confident in terms of like what I'm able to deliver, but enough to where it's like I'm nervous because it's been 5 years since I dropped the initial project under a completely different name, you know. So it's like, how are people going to receive me when it's already 5 years later?
Definitely.
But I feel confident with it. I feel good. I'm excited to give this to the folks, you know.
That's amazing, and the confidence definitely flows through this every single bar and beat that we hear. And I also wanted to touch base on your new introduction that we're hearing, as well as Ray Amoxtli.
Yes.
So with that, I really wanted to give you a little bit of just freedom to kind of explore as to why you felt the need to really intensify that this is a reintroduction of it, because I know that there was some concepts where we got a little bit of your childhood here and there in your past projects, and honestly those have kept the audience potently,
of course,
you know, throughout these past few years. So I definitely feel like that's been a long time coming, but I think it's going well, and I want you to be able to just kind of give some insight on why you wanted that to be highlighted so much with this album.
So the name change in itself, you know, I spent the last decade as Ape, always protect against evil, and I thought I was crazy, for lack of better terms, for wanting to change my name when I've put so much time and energy into creating such a huge brand, locally obviously, but creating something so significant that people know me as, to where it's like I'm walking on the street and people are like, yo, Ape, or it's like, you're Ape, right? So the name change in itself just came from the simple fact that I feel like I outgrew who I once was. Like Ape was the identity that was protecting little Ray. That's what it is in essence. Ape who was what Ray needed while growing up. And now that Ray is older, now that I'm older, you know, talking to myself in the third person, but now that I'm older, it's like I no longer need that extra sense of protection, because nobody ever made me feel like I was protected or safe when I was younger. And so this entire like alter ego significance of the first album was formulated, but it's like I don't need that anymore. Now I'm confident with who I am. I'm confident with the decisions that I want to make, and like Ray, I'm here. Like I got myself now moving forward, you know, and that's what this next project is, and it's at its core. It's just me delivering to the folks, this is who I am, from being an artist, from being a human being, from being a son, brother, a lover. I'm just giving myself wholeheartedly to everybody, and that's how I feel like I'm going to be able to continue to succeed within this kind of like musical journey. You know what I'm saying? Definitely. Being authentically oneself, yes. I guess.
Yes. So speaking of the younger Ray, I wanted to kind of, I guess, give you an idea of what I was thinking about throughout the album and the questions, how I kind of wanted to reflect with them. So a lot of this was reminding me of a study done by Erik Erikson. He's a German philosopher, and he covers the virtue development, and he's known for like his theory of psychological development and the concept of identity crisis. So it kind of covers through like from infanthood, from all the way from when you're first born all the way up to like I think 40 to 50. I think it stops around 50 or so. But so he kind of covers like what virtues and what characteristics are developed if a need is or isn't met for a child. And so since this is kind of like a more in-depth look as to what little Ray experienced and what kind of walls you had to build to kind of be that strong protector against evil, I think that's a way that we can kind of keep this engaged with the mental aspects that we kind of are, you know, forced to hear, that we're forced to feel, you know, in a very good and very not upsetting way, but it's just it hurts your heart so much because you know that so much of it is not only happening to this artist, but you can sense that this artist is speaking from hurt that he heard from others as well. Like it's not only your depth and your pain in here, it also feels like there was a lot of references to your understanding of how that pain not only affected you, but how it affected your peers, your community, how it's continuously still affecting. So I kind of wanted to just have that a little bit in the air because I'll kind of just be going through little like topics like that. So starting with the first one on the track, Seven Trees.
Hey, shout out to Seven Trees. I love y'all. Always have y'all in my heart.
This is amazing, and I'm glad that you started with this because it really feels like we just landed like on home plate for you.
Yeah,
it was just like right where you began, and it's kind of, I think that what stuck out to me the most was because for someone who doesn't know this area, they would kind of have to guess what goes along with it. They'll kind of have to guess just based off of this storyline, and there's so much with it because not only in the beginning you kind of give your own perspective. I guess a few points that a couple of my favorite bars were my pronouns identify me a problem.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so with that one, I was wondering, was there a specific reason that you included pronouns as to like your characteristics? I feel like that's kind of what you were defining that like as the problem, like, you know, like your sense of like urgency to speak up, your sense of, you know, understanding, you know, like that's a problem for others because they're not used to that vulgarity, they're not used to that boldness and that confidence of knowing when something is wrong, like we need to put a stop to it and kind of like establish a way to not have that effect happen again. So with that, what was that? What was like your intentions with this line specifically? Like,
yeah, honestly, it was just some slick shit that I saw.
I was gonna ask, was it just like a fun bar that you were like, ooh, put that in there?
And I wanna shout out to all my folks that might not identify or attach themselves to what, you know, we're socially constructed to be as humans between male, female, because those type of bars or words for the most part are definitely coming from that community. And there was one thing that I seen off of, I believe it might have been a queer page, but it was just like, yo, my pronouns are I'm a problem. And I was like, oh, that's just hard. That's just some hard shit. Like I took inspiration from that. And then the reason that I decided to throw that in there was because I'm somebody who, you know, I'm a man. I identify as a man, but I'm also somebody who wants to kind of redefine what it means to be a man. And so when it comes to identifying as a problem, it's like that's not always going to be taken lightly in a lot of spaces. And so it was me kind of showing allyship very loosely, because I know there's a lot of work to be done, but it was also just me honoring the folks that come up with some creative shit like that. And I was like, oh, I'm definitely going to apply that, but also just me kind of paying homage to, like, you know, the allyship of just like, I'm not going to be limited by these specific titles that you might place on me. And if I do follow those titles, I'm still going to redefine what it is, you know, and I'm a problem in many different ways, some more subtle than others, but yeah, that was the primary reason for that. I just thought it was some slick shit to say.
I feel like it was, I was definitely like on the fence of like judging if it was just like a fun bar that you're like, oh, this is a perfect kind of complex way to describe, you know, the different elements of Ray Ray. But then I was also thinking like, okay, knowing him, he's very aware of what he's saying. He wants to, like, so I was kind of thinking there has to be like an underlining like allyship, like kind of mention as you were speaking, because on top of that, there's also some saying at the end where we hear some, I feel like chanting. There's a little bit of, there was a lot of, I feel like there were, on this first track, there was a lot established that you agree with and that you disagree with. Leading on with the ending of it, how it kind of says, we cannot continue to have our Latino community cannot be continued to be silenced in our community.
Yes.
So I feel like I wanted to be able to just touch base on, with that one song, there was probably about 6 different chapters that you just kind of stamped like, this is what I feel, this is what you're going to be hearing, this is just the beginning. So with that one, was this kind of what you wanted with the first track? Were you kind of hoping for it to kind of be the introduction of the rest of it, or was there a reason why you kind of had each one kind of laid out differently? Like, as we're going to go into the next track, I feel like we got a sense of the nurturing side, and with this one is a little bit of all of that. Like, was there a reason why is that why you had that more in the front row of this album?
With that one, honestly, so this whole project was written peak pandemic. And the reasoning for Seven Trees was, one, I wrote that in the parking lot of Seven Trees while people were out here dying, people were fighting over what political associations they had, theories that were popping up around the time. I don't want to say conspiracy, because I also hold a certain level of belief and understanding that, there's some fucked up shit that does happen to us. But this was at the height of everything happening with the pandemic, especially with everything we were seeing on social media. So the intention behind it was that I didn't know how I felt. I was just kind of existing. That's the thing with the pandemic, was that you were forced to just sit there and take in what was just happening at the moment, as opposed to me graduating from school and being like, oh, what's my future going to be? I'm usually going to go get an internship or go work here, or it's like, all right, what's the next thing that I'm going to do with my job? It was like, nah, we didn't have a chance for any of that. We didn't know what the next day was going to look like. So the Seven Trees, in essence, is like, I didn't know what was going to happen. I was just rapping about what was in that moment. The only thing I felt was just how I felt that day. And that's how it became, and that's why all that stuff in the back, on the end of the track, started to be like what it was. It was just summing up. It was summing up everything that was happening at that time. And there was a lot of shit happening.
So that was just like, we got like placed right into your head. Yeah, so with that one, it feels like we definitely got put right into the scene. So we
just, threw y'all right into it. Threw y'all right into, like, this is what's happening to me in this moment. And welcome to the journey.
Definitely. And one of the journey lessons that I picked up just from that first one was, I believe it's the chorus. I'm still kind of breaking down which part was what, but sending Venmo requests for all of my wasted energy. That stood out to me because I feel like it was a golden line, because it's kind of like you're talking back for reclaiming your wasted energy. Like, how do you feel what does that look like to you? Like, how would you advise someone to move forward when they're also feeling the need to be more progressive with keeping boundaries for yourself, or not letting others waste your energy any longer? Like, what does that look like for you? Like, what can you advise somebody who's also trying to, like, not have their energy be wasted? And if so, like, what foundation can they lay upon?
The best way that I can possibly say that, and this might be the most politically incorrect answer, is just stop letting people around you who don't give a fuck about you. And I said it in a more creative way, to where it's just like, I'm sending Venmo requests for all of my wasted energy. But at its core, it was like, I lost a lot of friendships. So with Seven Trees, it was just like, there was a lot of friendships that didn't survive the pandemic that I had. People that I romanticized, people that I definitely wanted to be around, people that I did want to build relationships with. It didn't end up going the way that I imagined it. And, you don't know what's happening, to where everybody's dying. You don't know what tomorrow is going to look like. And you share these conversations and these memories with people that you really want to be friends with, and it ends up going into a different direction. And, obviously there's more to the story, but for the sake of it, it's just like, why the fuck are people wasting my time? Why am I wasting my own fucking time? And the boundary setting comes from really paying attention to the kind of people that we want around us. I could easily say that also within this album, and people would see it with the marketing, all the stuff that, all the people that are going to be in the photos that I'm dropping for the next month until its release, well, they might have already seen it already, are significant people that are in my life that I want to continue to have in my life. These are the folks that text me, yo, did you make it home safely? That shit is beautiful. So that's exactly why anybody else that might not be feeling like somebody's aligned with them, it's like, send them that fucking Venmo request of wasting all of my fucking time and energy. You wasted my fucking time. We can't get that time back. Time is the most expensive resource, and I'm passionate about it, but that is what it was at its core. I was just pissed. I was pissed, but I was hurt. I was hurt that I was like, yo, I thought that we were going to be able to survive this together.
Like, you had a trust with them established that this would overcome that.
And it happened frequently. It was just like, people outgrow each other, people, hurt each other, people say some out-of-pocket shit to each other. As humans, we're complex. At some point, though, my empathy kind of wears thin, and I'm just like, I've done nothing to disrespect you. So at what point does that disrespect start to come to me? And so it's like, all right, well, since we're all fucking dying, I want my money. At its core, since we're all fucking dying, I want my money, even if I can't take it with me. So
I think for that, on touching on that last topic, for wasted energy, I think that reminded me of Erickson's concept of psychoanalytic theory, where he kind of gives space for people to talk about it's more focused on cognitive behaviors, and he kind of does it by giving the patient or the person in pain emotionally time to focus on their emotions, to explore avoidance, identifying reoccurring themes. So that's kind of what stuck out to me, because it feels like there was just so much of that mistrust just continue, just being fallen and being broken down. And so I think that was a really intense way that you kind of like exemplified that stage of virtue development, which is a little bit through infancy, from birth to 18 months, where the conflict is trust versus mistrust. So even though that's an infant stage, I feel like just having that concept in your head, it adds or takes away from hope. And
most definitely.
And one of the things that I think is the most influential with hip hop is hope. That we're just frequently just feeding our hurt and trying to recycle it into hope. So I feel like it was amazing that you kind of were able to establish that without really like even saying that. Like it's just you can feel that your connection is, you want that hope. You're it's not like being mean, but you're being aware that you deserve better love.
Yeah.
And that's something that isn't learned until that mistrust is developed, sadly. And one thing that I also wanted to note is that you're going through these things as an adult. And whether it's as you were referring to the childhood state of you, we still are reminded of these, this infancy stage where we develop this trust or mistrust. So I think that it's really, really cool that you kind of are always intact with the younger self, because I think so many of us forget that that's who we're kind of still living with. With our reactions, with the way that someone kind of, like reaches out for your hand. If you kind of have a different past with reoccurring trauma, then there's a way that you can be comfortable or not be comfortable with that based on that trust.
And that part is underrated. Like the child within us doesn't disappear. It just gets suppressed. And that's why I appreciate you even bringing that up, because that's where we're going with this direction of like everything that I'm going to be doing from here on out within my life, and then also my musical journey, is going to be significant to what Ray dreamed of as a kid. And now it's more so like I'm kind of reclaiming that hope of I'm making the decision for myself. I don't need to be in that survival mode anymore, which is what Ape used to be. Ape was survival mode. I don't need that anymore. I'm not in survival mode. Now I know when I'm like, okay, I'm not feeling good today. My body, I need to listen to my body. I need to move forward. That's where we're going with it. And that's why I always appreciate how people interpret the music in itself, but it's also like beautiful that you're even bringing different things out of it for me when you mention that kind of stuff. So no, I wholeheartedly appreciate that. That's amazing.
I'm glad. I was hoping I wasn't like engaging too much with like, the past. So I'm like,
me. I'm an over analytical type motherfucker. I overanalyze everything. I overanalyze how I'm gonna call to order a pizza.
Yeah,
that's just me.
One more other, I guess, kind of diving more into that with that hope and losing hope. More of a personal question is, I feel like I can honestly think of a lot of times in my childhood where I can remember where I lost hope, where a moment where I kind of looked to someone who could have stopped a situation and just kind of gave that eye like, hey, like Mayday, and then it doesn't get solved. And so that's kind of where I remember that younger child just being like, okay, like that's it, and just feeling hopelessness. And so I was wondering, like, do you recall like different chapters throughout your life where like that still kind of not haunt you, but still kind of like chime into your life as you kind of engage with this career elements that you're doing, like with let's say you're doing a new venue or something, you're trying to have a performance somewhere, like would you kind of, what younger hopelessness kind of days still kind of reflect with you in your career path now?
That's a big fucking question. But I appreciate it. I'm never shy from the questions. I think if I'm answering this correctly, from when I was younger, there's been multiple moments where I felt like somebody wasn't supportive of my safety from a really, really young age, which is unfortunate. If I was going to say when it really started to happen was probably when I was 13, at a very significant age when my father passed away. But the thing that I want to point out is that even at this age, with where I'm at and how confident that I am in my healing journey and processing the kind of stuff that I've been through, it still happens. There's still many ways and people don't make me feel safe, which is why I'm so distant and so to myself. And I think that's one of the things that people that are listening to this should take into consideration, is that in many ways, regardless of how much we might want to reflect and heal from the kind of shit that we dealt with as children, it still kind of sticks with us until the day that you die. And that's where the hopelessness will linger.
Yeah.
That's where the hopelessness will linger. But the beautiful thing about hip hop is that's what combats it. That's the antithesis, if I'm saying that correctly, to that hopelessness. Because it's like, this gives me the outlet. Exactly. This gives me the outlet to process what it is that I'm saying in a very, very safe way, in a very expressive way. And I let go of some of the shit that I might be holding for that day. But I think we just have to understand that that's going to continue with us until the day that we die. We got to learn how to coexist with it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so we can fully do something with it, but I've never seen anybody completely healed. And usually the people that are completely healed are fucking assholes. Usually the people that are completely healed are assholes. Fuck all y'all. All y'all out there who pretend that you're healed can kiss my ass.
Lies.
Identify as a problem. But I'm talking shit now.
All right, so I want to chime into the second track here.
Yeah.
Virtual Ecstasy.
Virtual Ecstasy.
Definitely stands for the title, exactly, for what it is. So with this one, I wanted to know, like, maybe a little bit about the music, like the beats, the music choice with this one, because in the beginning it reminded me of almost like a symphony, which was really, really, really amazing. And I loved it because, you know me, I listen to a lot of different like mediums.
Of course.
And so that's kind of always like the fun part for me, is kind of seeing what inspirations they had behind that. So upon finding that beat, like, was that what drew you to that beat? Like, what kind of elements were in it that we kind of hear about, that were kind of the key points that made you kind of want to write about that topic? Because I know it's like, kind of, when you hear an instrument, for example, like sometimes that brings in a more, like the piano, I feel like that brings in a more freeing sense, you know? So was that kind of something that helped you kind of dive into the heartache that we kind of are left with at the end of that song?
Yeah, so my intention behind choosing that beat came from so upon hearing it, it just sounded apocalyptic. It just sounded very post-apocalyptic, to where, like, I can imagine even the cover art for it, but I could imagine everything that was happening around the height of the pandemic. I just imagine the landscape of everybody being completely gone, me being the only person on the planet left, and then just kind of walking through a completely dead-end area where there was empty buildings, just trash floating through the floor, no sense of life anywhere. And that's what that beat kind of emulated to me. And because everybody was so uncertain about what was going to happen during our lockdown, it's like, there's a huge possibility that this might be the landscape that we're walking towards moving forward. And so when I heard that, that's what it called for me. I felt like it really emulated what was happening at that time, which is why it transitions from all of those chants from everything happening with George Floyd, you know, anti-Asian hate, so on and so forth. And it just sets the tone for, like, okay, pre, now it's post. What's happening here? And then I took it in a completely different direction because of the content that I'm talking about in it. But
well, I think the content I think this was my funnest track to kind of like figure out what I thought it meant to me, or what I was thinking you were trying to say with this. Because for me, it kind of felt like I was a character in GTA, and then I felt like I was especially with the chorus, or the woman speaking, where she says, like, is it real? Is it fantasy?
Yeah.
I kept kind of thinking, like, it felt like it's as if we were playing a game, but it was like we were, you know, it's similar to how you said, it feels like we're in apocalyptic mode with the pandemic. So it did feel like we're channeling between like reality and daydreaming. Like when there was like fights over like toilet paper in the stores, we're like, is this freaking happening? Like this has to be like some random actor portrayal, you know, type of thing. So there was a lot of different senses of that throughout the pandemic. So what I think was nice was that you painted like a blurred line where it's kind of hard for us to decide what you were kind of, for me it was hard to kind of decide what you were talking about. Were you in reality, because you started off with "Mama, I just killed a man," and I was like, man, like my homie, you're like, maybe, you know, but I'm like, I don't know if you would drop that on the song. I'm like, you know, like, and I would listen to the rest of it. I'm like, okay, we're kind of going into two realms here. Like we're hearing his logic, but we're also seeing what's possible, like the fantasy of any, like I can do anything, like, you know. So it really did feel like the apocalypse. Like it felt like I was in a zombie movie almost, but it was just like we're trying to get your sense, like what were you going to be aware of next? What do you want to do with this power that you can do diving into both worlds?
Yeah. So I don't want to say real music heads, but people that really, really listen to music will know what I'm referencing. And I kind of almost don't want to give it away just because I want people to experience it on their own. But inspiration stems from a lot of different things. And at its core, that came from Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody. I think that's what it is. And he starts out with "Mama, I just killed the man, put a gun right to his head, pulled the trigger, now he's dead." And I was like, that's hard as fuck.
Yeah.
That's hella hard. And how can I pay homage to emulating that kind of emotion with this kind of song? And that was just the delivery that I gave it, but then it turned into something completely different. And I think the significant part of this track in itself is hopefully people do kind of get a sense of like, oh shit, is he talking about video games right now? Because I love video games. I'm a gamer. You know, that's just me at my core. But I want to do it in a way that's not corny. And so I felt like being able to talk about it in a realistic setting of like, this is everything that's happening during the pandemic. It would be fair for me to say some of the most outlandish shit ever because it's nothing out of the ordinary. Because people are fighting over toilet paper right now, you know? But I think the biggest thing to take away from this track is young men specifically, in general, use video games as an escape because they're not happy with their reality. And that was the point of it. So video games, when I didn't have Ape as this identity to protect myself, the video games were that escape from my reality of just like, I don't like what's happening right now. And so these would be like my virtual realities that I would be able to participate in, where I have total control and I get to choose whether or not there's violence that is present. And okay. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot that goes into it, and I don't want to give it too much. I want people to formulate their own opinions, but that's what it is. It's a social commentary on just men using video games to separate themselves from their real from their reality because we're unhappy with it.
Okay.
You know, people.
So you just answered two of my next questions. One of them was, when do you feel it's needed to escape reality? And I think that's pretty open, but you also kind of touched base on that, so I'll skip over that one. But the main thing as well that you said, young boys kind of use video games as a way to escape reality. That was one of my last questions for, well, not the last one, but was one of the last ones, was this escaping reality for you? Was video games a way to escape reality growing up? So, because
Still
one
is.
line, one line that I did notice that was respawn after respawn means I get another chance. So, from that word, I know from hearing that word respawn, I think it's Apex, where they're like, they die and then like your homie will come up and like, shah, and like grab you by your back and kind of like pull you up. So, I was thinking like, was that kind of how, I guess, music was for you? Like, did it kind of bring you back into life? Like, when did you kind of have that thing that gave you back that life, gave you back that hope into your life? Like, as a kid, like, what was that besides video games? Like, what was it in the video game, I know you said the freedom to be able to like have the control of chaos. So that kind of you just keep answering all my questions.
Control of chaos, I think, is the most significant thing that you can say right now.
Okay, good.
But well, so with that, it's I haven't thought about it that far, to be quite honest. And that's what I love having these conversations, is because now I'm starting to get how you're taking this information and interpreting it in your own way. Because once the music is out, it doesn't belong to me. I've been saying that since the first album. Once I let it go, it no longer belongs to me. I might own the rights to it, but in terms of the idea behind it, the belief and what people take from it, I have no control over that. And so I love hearing, I just love hearing these questions. But the respawn after respawn part was more so an ode to, because in most video games, when you're playing multiplayer or even just campaigns, you respawn after you die. You just get a certain level of lives, or depending on the game and what decade you're playing it, you get an unlimited amount of lives. And that was more so one of my blatant lines, to where it's like, in the video game, regardless of how many times I've fucked up, I'm still in control and I can just do it over. When in reality, we're unhappy with our reality. The more that you fuck up, the more people make you realize, like, yeah, you fucked up.
Yeah.
And it starts to internalize.
Get that reminder.
Yeah, people love to remind you when you fuck up for some reason. People love that shit.
Yeah.
You know, and it's ridiculous. So that respawn was more so one of the blatant lines where I was like, you know, at least when I'm playing video games, this is my chance to continue to try it again. You know, because I'm escaping my reality. I don't care about my current reality because it's just hurtful. I can't go back in the past and change what happened to me and the people that made me feel unsafe and the people that didn't care to protect me. I can't do that. In the video game, I can. In the video game, I can get my revenge. I can get vengeance and then go to sleep peacefully at night because I was escaped for at least an hour or two.
You didn't even do anything.
Yeah.
It's gone.
You know, so it was one of those more blatant lines.
Okay, so I think the reason why this was also one of my favorite ones was because, I mean, if I'm being honest, the last part of it where you kind of hear the yelling at you, it, in a very good way, but in a very like intense way, it kind of triggered like my heart. I was like, I had a lot of like, it was like a flashback, like immediately, like I felt like I was being awoken by who used to scream at me that way.
Okay.
You know, just how intense it came in. Like, it's just, you're in your reality. You're finally comfortable. You're finally safe. And then instantly that's just shut down. And, so for me, like even still listening to that, like it was kind of, no matter how many times I was preparing for it to come, I'm like, okay, this is the last line where he says this, and then it's kind of, you get, you know. So I
understand.
Yeah, so I was wondering, like, what have you done to kind of like help you get through a couple of like the bigger hardship chunks that you kind of like lay out for us to hear on this project? Like, what physical things, what kind of emotional kind of patterns have you kind of done for yourself throughout these past like 5 years, I would say, because that's when you kind of encourage yourself to get this new sense of identity. What kind of fueled that? What helped you kind of create this safer sense of openness of what was unsafe before?
People might not like this answer, because I know that when it comes to healing processes, we want our destination. We want to know what, as a flower is growing, we want to know what the end goal is going to look like. We want to know what the flower is going to blossom into. And, you know, I hate that I'm speaking in metaphor right now, but
I love it. Keep going.
I think the reason that people aren't going to like this answer is because I haven't done anything. And one of the things that I've realized is lately, I had an epiphany not too long ago to where somebody made the comment of like, are you really healing, or are you isolating yourself from the people that trigger you? And so I would say for the last 5 years, that's what I've done. But not to an extent to where it's harmful for myself, to an extent where it's like, I want to be going back to that first track, 7 Trees. It's like, I'm taking ownership over the people that I want to be around. And the reason that I'm saying people might not like it is because, you know, I'm revered for being this type of person that's you know, very, very mature for the kind of experiences that they've been through, and somebody who advocates for men to just go ahead and be themselves regardless of whatever that means, and so on and so forth. And, you know, I have this online presence where it's like I do want people to just be themselves. But that's the thing, I don't have the answer, and I'm still seeking it out, and I might not find it until the day that I'm gone, until the day that I'm reunited with the earth. And I think that's the difficult part for anybody to comprehend, even myself, you know. And so I think what I've done for the last 5 years is just intellectualize the way that I feel about why I'm feeling like this, as opposed to just feeling.
Yeah.
Why don't you just cry? Just cry. It's okay to fucking feel.
Yeah.
But that's been suppressed from us for so long that that's what stops us from growing and I don't want to say maturing out, because that's not the right word, but that's what stops us from growing out of the stuff that the traumas, I know that's a buzzword now, but that's what stops us from growing out of those traumas that we've experienced before. The simple act of just crying and feeling it. And so even that part right there, I have to skip it. Even when I was listening back to it to see whether or not the mix was perfect, to see whether or not I wanted to add anything, I would skip it, because I fucking hate revisiting that. It's horrible.
Yeah.
And it comes from somebody that I care about so much, but it was such a core memory that I had when I was about like 11. And it's something that's carved, like deeply, deeply carved into the back of my brain. And the moment that I hear that, and I appreciate the young Mujer who actually gave me that soundbite.
I was wondering who did that. I was like, that's got to be a big chunk for her to.
Yeah, no, I'm going to love and bless Antoinette. If you're out there, I wholeheartedly appreciate you for being a part of this journey with me and offering your vocals for the project. You get your credit, everything. Definitely going to be boosted when this stuff is being pushed out there. But I felt like, and it was a compliment, I felt like they were the one that was going to be able to perfectly emulate who I was trying to recreate in that sense. And they did. And, you know, somewhat of it was a little bit of acting. We had conversations about it, and I was just like, yo, you might have to tap into some personal parts of yourself that trigger that intense emotion.
Yeah.
And they sent me 22 to 30 different voice notes on how they were doing it. And I'm just like, damn, this must be fucking intense. Like, me hearing it is intense. I could only imagine you having to continue to say this shit is intense. So yeah, shout out to Antoinette for being able to provide that vocal on that. But it's something that I can't listen to. It's something that I'm still going to continue to skip over when I revisit that project. But that's something for everybody else to take and hold it dear to them, because it doesn't belong to me anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
That's definitely something that, for me, that was my, I don't know if I would call it my reality song, but that was like, I was thinking of it as my in-between song, because I felt like I was just kind of in your passenger seat of what it was like for you, but I was still kind of interpreting with my core memories a little bit more so.
Yeah.
And also, you mentioned up to age 11, where you kind of were having those feelings of not feeling safe and not feeling protected. So once you got into school, how do you feel that affected your confidence as you were? I know there was some parts where you mentioned insecurities that you feel like the world gave to you, because they were the ones who complimented on different things that you weren't really worried about as much. And so going on to not the second song, but my last question on that one here, sorry.
I love the sound of crickets.
I do. Yeah, so I just feel like, I think I'll just skip over that one, because I think I'm toning into my virtual reality. I don't want to, I'm like, okay, I'm going to let everyone kind of have their own interpretation of the song, because
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And that's what it's there for.